Hey everybody, it's Boo Ray Perry in Tampa, Florida, and today we are going to talk about the Fuji X100V and its AF/MF menu system. It's a lot to cover. Before we get started, don't forget to be sure and check out my podcast. It's called Photobomb. It's available anywhere that podcasts are found. It's a lot of fun, and every week we cover the latest photography news as well. You can join my group on Facebook. It's called Pro Photo Talk with Boo Ray, and it's a great place to connect with other photographers and talk about gear or ask questions about your style or your technique. And if you go into the description, you will find a link to my website. On that website, you will find links to every single thing that I use. My camera, my lens hood, my thingamabob here, my thumb grip here, my strap, my bag, which you'll see behind me that carries all my gear in it. Everything is listed on that page. And if you see something that you like in my video and you think you might want to purchase it, if you go there and click a link, I get like $1 or 10 cents or 20 cents or whatever, and it really helps me to keep this channel alive. For example, I have several different lens hoods, and right now I'm using this one because I was able to seal the camera off and make it watertight by putting a filter on the lens and then putting this on. And the other night I was taking pictures at a football game in the mud and the rain, and so I wanted to do that. But normally I don't actually use this lens hood. My favorite lens hood is a different lens hood, and you'll find that also on the page. All right, let's get started. Now here's another thing about this video that's going to be different. I'm not going to show you the menu system as I go through it. And the reason for that is that I really think that it's easier for you to learn this if you are looking at your own camera. So if you want to learn about the AF/MF menu system on your camera, it's really a good idea to just have your camera in your hand while you're watching this video, and that way you can go through and click these menus yourself and see these options, as opposed to seeing them abstract on your screen of your phone or your computer. So grab your camera right now, get it out in front of you, and we're going to go through it one by one, and I'm going to tell you basically what I know about these menu systems, what they can do for you, and also give you some tips as to how I use them. All right, so let's start at the top. The very first thing you come across on the menu system is focus area. And this button is the button that you can use on your menu system, which will allow you to decide what your focus area is on your camera. Are you focusing on a spot that's this big? Are you focusing on a spot that's this big? And everything in between. I never use this on my camera because I have that preset into one of the dials on the back of my camera. I have it preset here so that I can make that adjustment anytime I want to. So I don't have to use that particular menu system. A lot of cameras will do that. They'll have things set up automatically to buttons on the camera, but then they'll still put it in the menu system. And this is one of those examples. All right, second up is the AF mode. There are 4 different options on this menu. They are single point, zone, wide tracking, and all. I keep my camera set to single point most of the time. I say I keep it set to single point, but here's what I mean to say. I use single point most of the time, but in this menu system, I actually have it set to all. What's the difference? Well, it's really very simple. If you've got it set to single point and then you use the back of your camera wheel, this one right here, and I'll do that for you right here. You press this and then you can turn this and it changes your single point, right? If you have it set to all, then what it does is it cycles through everything. So you start at single point, you keep going until you get to zone, and then you keep going until you get to wide and all tracking, and then you go right back to single point. So what setting all does is it fixes it so that you can go to any one of the single point, zone, or wide tracking settings simply by pushing the wheel on the back of your camera and then rotating it left and right. Whereas if you're set to single point, when you rotate that wheel, it only stays in the single point setting. And I just like the option of, if for some reason I want to go wide tracking, I can just go push, roll, 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 and go straight to wide tracking and it'd be there instantly, right? It's just convenient that way. Next on the list is the AF custom settings. And as I said, we are not going to mess with the AF custom settings because they're just too detailed and they're just too deep. If you're a person who is going to be using this camera to photograph a lot of movement like sports and stuff like that, then you're going to want to get deep into there and figure out exactly how the tracking is going to work for you, and it's going to work different depending on whether you're focusing on something that's moving quickly or moving slowly, or whether or not there's any distractions or obstructions in the frame. Really, there's a whole video that could be made just on that, and I don't want to make that video and this video because it would be a really, really long video. The next item in the menu system is actually one of the hardest ones to understand, and it is the Store AF Mode by Orientation part of the menu. I'm going to bring mine up here. Hopefully I can actually show you a little bit about how this works because it's really really weird. Okay, so there are 3 options, and the first one is off. And off means that if you set your focus mode, you set your focus box in here. I want to focus on this spot right here, and this is how big I want the box to be, right? And then it doesn't matter if you turn the camera or not, that box stays right in the same spot on your screen and it doesn't move. Okay, that's number one. Number two is focus area only. And what this does is it lets you set the focus area for each orientation separately. So what that means is you can say, I want to focus in the top left-hand corner when I'm in vertical mode. And then when I'm in horizontal mode, I want to focus in the bottom right-hand corner. And then every time you change, the focus area will automatically change to what you've told it you want it to be, right? And then the third option is just on. And what on does is it does the same thing as the previous option where it moves the focus area to a preset spot depending on your orientation. But it also will change the size of the focus area if you've done that. So if you've decided that when you're in landscape mode, you want your focus area to be in the top left-hand corner and tiny, right? But when you are in vertical orientation, you want your focus mode to be in the top right-hand corner and you want it to be big, right? Now, every time you change orientation, it's going to change automatically for you. I can't really figure out who needs this option. I can't figure out where it would really come in handy. I guess maybe if you were taking portraits of people and then also taking horizontal pictures of people who were moving. And so maybe you wanted to have it so that when I'm in vertical mode, just give me a small focus area right at the top. Or like, eye focus mode or something like that. And then when I'm in, that's vertical. And then when I'm in horizontal mode, I want you to go wide and tracking. Maybe, but I mean, it just seems so, it just seems like a lot to set that up. And it would also have to be so specific, right? You would have to be, I absolutely need that particular setting every time you were in horizontal and every time you were in vertical. And I can't imagine a situation where I'm not wanting to move my focus spot around all the time. So this is one of those areas that you see so many times with these cameras where they give you all these options for something that you probably never ever use. And I have to be honest, I probably spent 5-10 minutes exploring this option before I finally figured out exactly what it did so that I could make this video. All right, let's go to the next part on the menu, which is AF point display. Do you want it on or do you want it off? This is very simple. If you're using a wide focusing box, and it's focusing on your subject, there's actually a bunch of little boxes inside there. And when you focus, if you have it set to on, the individual boxes that are focusing will light up for you. And if you have it set to off, they don't light up. It's just giving you information. That's all. I like to have it set to on. If I'm going to use that mode, I do want to know exactly what's being focused on. I don't use that mode very often. I tend to use more of a single shot mode and just put that little box exactly where I want it. But it is nice that if I use the big box, it'll show me where in the box it's actually focusing. The next item in the menu system is number of focus points, and this is where you decide how many focus points there are in your camera's viewfinder, and I just go for the largest amount. I can't understand really why you would want fewer focus points, because the more focus points you have, the more you're going to get pinpoint focus. So I go for the largest amount, which is 425 points. Now, the next item is kind of cool. It's called Pre-AF. And what Pre-AF does is it focuses before you push the shutter halfway down. Now that sounds like continuous focus, right? That's what continuous focus does, but that's not the same. With continuous focus, you push the button down and then it's constantly focusing no matter where you move the camera, it's constantly focusing until you pull the trigger, right? And with single shot, S, focus, you push it, it locks focus on whatever you're looking at, and then if you move the camera, it stays at the focus distance you were at. Okay, so there's continuous, which is C, where you push the button and it's always focusing. And there's single shot, which is S, where you push the button down and it stays focused on whatever you were focused on when you push the button down. Now, Pre-AF, what Pre-AF does is it actually is always kind of continuous focusing even when you don't press the button. And Fuji says that what this does is it helps you to not miss shots, because the minute you move the camera into an area where you want to take a picture, it automatically starts to focus before you even touch the trigger. I have to believe this also is going to run your battery down. And it's also, I mean, it's not very loud, but it's noisy. If you've got this set to on, whenever you're moving your camera around, you can hear your lens constantly focusing. Even though you're not touching the button, it's constantly focusing. I like things to be quiet and unobtrusive, so I don't use continuous focus hardly ever, and I don't imagine I'll ever really use pre-AF either, because it means that my camera is always going to be focusing, which I'm going to hear, and it also means it's going to run my batteries down. The next item in the menu system is AF Illuminator, and what AF Illuminator does, not Eliminator, Illuminator, what AF Illuminator does is it fixes it so that when the camera is having a hard time focusing, it will illuminate the scene a little bit. It'll put a little light out to help the camera grab focus. I have tried using this, and I haven't really been in a situation that was dark enough to need it. And I've been in some pretty dark situations. The camera does such a good job with ISO and high ISO performance that it can upscale that ISO so high that it tends to practically see in the dark and find focus. But I imagine there will be some situations, very, very dark situations, where you will want that little light to light up to help the camera focus. So I don't think it's necessarily, you know, a bad idea to have it on, because when you need it, you're going to need it. And if you've already got it on, then it's going to take care of it. And less chance you're going to miss a shot. So why not? Why not keep it on? All right, the next item on the menu is face eye detection. There are two options, face detection on and face detection off. And if you have face detection on, you then have to choose between 4 different options. You have to decide if you want to be eye off, eye auto, and if you want to be left eye, and if you want to right eye priority. I keep mine to eye auto. I wanted to pick an eye and focus on it, but I don't care which eye it is. Because if you set it to left eye or right eye, well, that's only going to work if you are taking a picture of a person and their eyes are turned uneven. So if you're taking a picture here, this is my left eye, then you would want it to be left eye priority, not right eye priority. Because if you're shooting very shallow with your depth of field, you want to be focused on the front eye, right? And if you were doing this, you want to be right eye priority. Well, I don't do a whole lot of portrait work with this camera. I guess if I was using it for headshots and I was shooting 20 people and they were all going to be sitting like this, then I guess I would set it up for right eye priority to make sure it grabbed that eye automatically. But that's really not the sort of thing you would do with this camera. This is a run and gun, you know, on the go camera. And so err on the side of caution. Just let it focus on whichever eye it wants to. Or you can just say focus on the face, and it'll do that too. It's really up to you. I bounce back and forth between eye off and eye on automatic. That's what I use. The next item is AF plus MF, and I covered this in the first video that I made after I bought the camera, where I talked about the 7 things that I set up immediately when I buy my camera and open it from the box. And AF plus MF is one of them, and I just love this feature. If you have this turned on, then when you've got the button pushed down and you are focusing on something with autofocus, if you turn the front focusing ring, it automatically goes into manual focus mode. So if you're getting autofocus, or you're having trouble with autofocus, or there's any concern whatsoever, you can just grab this front ring and bang, it kicks immediately into manual focus mode. I love this feature, and I have it turned on. Next on the menu is MF Assist, and this is going to play straight into manual focus. If you're going to be in manual focus mode, what kind of manual focus do you want to have? You can have standard, you can have digital split image, you can have digital micro prism, and you can have focus peak highlight. I have focus peak highlight, which means that when I go into manual focus mode, it highlights the areas that have the most contrast. It highlights the areas that it's focusing on, right? So it's like a red highlight. You can actually choose the color that you want the highlight to be. I have mine set to red. And then you can just change that dial right there and see that red wave move from front to back on your image and see exactly what you're focusing on. I have mine set to focus peak highlight red. Focus check is really cool too. If you're taking a picture of something and you're focusing on something, say, that's deep in the image, like say you're taking a wide picture of people and you're focusing their way back there, if you hit focus check, it will actually bring up a zoomed in version of your picture, so you can zoom in closer and see exactly what you're focusing on. I don't use it. I have it set off, and the reason is because it just puts more clutter into my screen that I really need. I just don't feel like there's a whole lot of situations where I really need that, so I don't have mine turned on. I have it set to off. The next item on the menu is Interlock Spot AE and Focus Area. I have mine set to on. And what that does is it means that when you're using spot metering, the spot that it meters is the spot that you are focused on. If you have this turned off, then it will spot meter at the center of the camera no matter what you're focused on. All right? So if you're taking a picture of something and you're focusing on something that's in the top right, if it's turned off, it's going to meter the center. If it's turned on, it's going to meter the thing that you're focused on. And I mean, the thing that you're focused on, isn't that the thing you want to be metered correctly? Right? All the time. So I have mine set to on. This is one of my favorite ones, and I'm going to read this directly from the manual and see if you can figure it out. Are you ready? Here it is. Instant AF settings, and here's what the manual says. Choose whether the camera focuses using single AF, AFS, or continuous AF, AFC, when a button to which focus lock or AF on is assigned is pressed in manual focus mode. I had to read that 5 times and deconstruct it word by word before I finally figured out what this means. Here's what I think it means. If you have a button on your camera assigned to autofocus on, right? So if you're in manual focus mode, you have a button you can push that will make your camera kick to autofocus. If you have that button assigned, when you press it, does it go to continuous shooting or does it go to single shot? All right, now I don't have a button set up that way on my camera, so this is something that doesn't concern me at all. But maybe you do. Maybe you shoot in manual all the time and you have a button that you use to assign automatic autofocus, and you want it to assign to continuous when you press the button. If that's the case, this is the menu setting for you. So go in there and change that to AFS or AFC, whichever one you want it to be set to. Whew. The next one is depth of field scale. You can pick between a pixel-based depth of field scale or a film format basis depth of field scale. I have mine set to pixel, but it really doesn't matter because I never use a depth of field scale. I just don't. It's never worked for me where the camera tries to show you what the depth of field is going to be. I'm a professional photographer, so I've just learned, I know, I can eyeball it. I know if I'm shooting at a particular aperture and a particular distance, I have a feel for what my depth of field is going to be. And so I've just never really tried to use this in a camera. So I have mine set to pixel, but it really doesn't matter because I really don't use it. The next item is release focus priority. And really, this is just an on-off button for your focus system to tell your camera whether or not you want it to take a picture if it cannot focus. So when you push the button down or you hit the back button focus and you're grabbing focus, when you push the trigger to take the picture, will it still take the picture even if you haven't locked focus? Do you want to take the picture even though the camera has not focused on anything or has not focused on what it's trying to focus on? That's the question that you have to answer. So if you have it set to release, then anytime you push the button, it's going to take a picture no matter what. And if you have it set to focus, then when you push the button, it will only take a picture if it is focusing on the thing it's trying to focus on, if it's been able to grab the focus. Now, I have mine set to focus because if I'm not focused on the thing I want to be focused on, there's no reason for me to take a picture of it. And I want the camera to refuse. That way I know, oh, I don't have a focus, right? If you're working quick and it's just taking pictures and you're not getting anything in focus, you don't know it because it's just taking the pictures anyway. I want the camera to be like, whoa, no, slow down, dude. I'm not letting you take this picture because it's not in focus. You need to make sure it's in focus first. So I like that the camera checks me on that. The next item on the menu is AF range limiter. And what this does, this is really cool. It's really cool, but I kind of think it's unnecessary, but it's just a perfect example of how camera manufacturers are just packing more and more customization into their cameras. You can decide what the focus range is on the camera. The camera has its own focus range built in. It'll only focus so close, and then it'll focus out to infinity. But you can actually tell it, I only want you to focus on things that are more than 4 feet away and less than 10 feet away. If you have a use for this, I would love for you to talk about it in the comments, and please tell me where this comes in handy. Maybe some sort of landscape photography. Maybe you're taking pictures of flowers or something and you want the camera to never focus to infinity because what you want to be focused on is always right in front of you, and maybe that's a problem. I don't know. But I would love for someone to tell me what their use is for this particular menu setting because it's cool you can do it, but I can't figure out why you would. The next setting is touchscreen mode, which is for setting up the touchscreen on the back of the camera and how you want the autofocus mode to work. And you can set it to area, AF on, touch shooting. I have mine set to touch shooting because I figured out very quickly once I got this camera, it's my first one with a touchscreen, that if I touch the back of the camera to focus on something, then you might as well just go ahead and take the picture. There's no reason for me to touch the camera to focus on something and then reach around and take the picture. It's just an extra step. If I'm focused on it, I want to take the picture. Right? It's not film, doesn't cost me any money. So if I'm focused, take the picture. Focus, take the picture. So mine is set to touch shooting. Next is corrected AF frame, and this is just something in your viewfinder. If you're using the optical viewfinder, you know that your frame is actually a little off center. So what this does is it shows you where your actual focus is in the frame. So you assume the focus, say, is in the middle, but it's actually a little off because your whole frame is off because you're using optical focus. Something you really have to see. So take the camera right now, kick it to optical focus, bring it up to your eye, turn this on and off, and you'll see that it gives you a little point that's off center that shows you where your actual focus point is. So that's it. That's everything. It's a lot, I know, and I'm sure that I probably could have spent more time on a particular thing that you wanted me to spend time on, but the truth is that the focus menu is so deep on the Fuji X100V that I didn't want this video to go on forever. So feel free to ask questions in the comments and talk to each other there, talk to me as well, and we'll figure this camera out together. But there's no doubt that you've got more features than ever before in the X100V and its focus system, and there's really nothing you can't tell this camera to do before you ever pull the trigger. Thanks for watching.